The grand hall of the alien city buzzed with tension. Princess Zora stood at the center, her heart pounding in her chest. The Alien Council, a group of powerful leaders from across the galaxy, stared down at her. Their faces were cold, their expressions unreadable. Zara had never felt so small, so insignificant. It was a day she had been dreading. The council had gathered to decide her fate, and the decision was about to be made. Zara had always known her role as the princess. Her life was not her own. She was meant to lead, to marry a powerful ruler from another galaxy and unite their people. But she had always dreamed of something different, something more. And now she stood in front of the council, facing the consequences of defying her duty. The head of the council, Lord Vanter, spoke first. His voice echoed through the hall, deep and cold. "Princess Zora, you have broken the sacred tradition. You have rejected the arranged marriage with Lord Elan, a powerful and respected leader. Your actions have brought shame to your family and to the entire planet." Zora's chest tightened as the words hit her like a physical blow. She had never wanted to marry Lord Elan. He was a powerful leader, yes, but he was cold, calculating, and she could never see herself with him. Yet the council had insisted that the union would benefit their planet. But Zara couldn't ignore her heart. She wanted more than a political alliance. She wanted love. She wanted to choose her own future. She looked at the council members, hoping to see some sign of mercy, but all she saw was cold judgment. "Your actions have consequences, Princess," Lord Vanter continued. "You have shamed our people. Therefore, we, the council, have decided that you are no longer fit to rule. You are to be exiled from the city. You will be sent to live among the humans." Zora's heart sank. The humans. The ones she had always been taught to look down on. The ones her people considered primitive and weak. Exile to a world of humans was the ultimate punishment. She couldn't believe it. She had just lost everything. Her title, her family, her future. Is this how it ends? She whispered to herself, fighting back tears. Is this my punishment? But before anyone could respond, a voice broke through the silence. "I will take her," a voice said, deep and firm. Everyone turned to see a human man standing in the doorway. His dark eyes met Zora's, and for a moment, she saw something there. A hint of compassion, maybe even understanding. This stranger had spoken, and in that instant, her fate had changed. Zora couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. This was not the end. This could be the beginning of something new. But what would it mean to live with a human? Would he accept her? Would she even survive on a planet so different from her own? As the council remained silent, Zora's world felt like it was falling apart, but for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of possibility. This stranger might just offer her a chance to escape the life that had been forced upon her. The quiet tension in the council room was almost unbearable as the human soldier, Eric, stepped forward. His dark hair and rugged features made him stand out among the alien dignitaries, but it wasn't just his appearance that drew attention. There was something in his eyes, a calm determination, a quiet strength that immediately set him apart from the rest. Princess Zora stood still, her heart racing. She had heard of humans, of course, but she never imagined one would speak out in her defense. Humans were considered lesser beings by her people, weak and unimportant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. They were a distant, almost forgotten species, kept out of the affairs of the greater universe. The idea of a human offering her salvation seemed almost absurd. But there he was, standing before the council, as if he had every right to be there. "I will take her," Eric repeated, his voice steady and unshaken. "The princess has done nothing wrong. It is not for you to decide her future. I will take responsibility for her." The room fell into stunned silence. No one moved. Zora could hardly believe her ears. A human soldier was offering to take her. Was this a joke? Did he even know what he was offering? Did he know how much danger he might be in? Her people were powerful, and crossing them was no small matter. Lord Vanter, the leader of the council, narrowed his eyes at Eric. You would take an exiled princess into your custody. You, a mere human. What makes you think you can just waltz into our affairs and decide what happens to her? Eric didn't flinch. His expression remained calm, though there was a fire in his eyes. I've seen enough injustice in my life to recognize when someone is being wronged. And I don't care if she's an alien princess or not. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption, including her. Zara's heart skipped a beat. The audacity of his words was staggering, but there was something in the sincerity of his voice that made her believe him. He wasn't just offering her protection, he was giving her a chance to live differently, to escape everything that had been forced upon her. I will take her to Earth, Eric continued, his gaze now fixed on Zara. It may not be a life of luxury, but it will be a life of freedom, a life where she can be whoever she wants to be. For the first time since the rejection, Zara felt a flicker of hope deep inside her. The humans had been looked down upon by her people for so long, but this human soldier saw something in her that her own people didn't. He was offering her a life away from the suffocating expectations of royalty, away from the confines of her birthright. A chance to be herself. Are you certain? Zara finally spoke, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and wonder. You don't know me. You don't know what I've done, what I'm capable of. Why would you offer me this chance? Eric met her eyes. Because I believe everyone deserves a chance to choose their own fate, Princess. I may not know everything about you, but I know that what's happening here, this is wrong. You deserve more than what your people have given you. You deserve the chance to live on your own terms. Zara didn't know what to say. She was stunned by the kindness in his words. Could it be true? Could a human, someone so different from her, actually want to help her? Lord Vanter's voice cut through the silence. This is foolishness. You will regret this decision, human. The consequences of defying us will be dire. But Eric stood firm, unfazed by the warning. I will take the risk. I'll take her. Zara's heart fluttered with an unexpected sense of relief. For the first time in her life, someone was offering her a chance at freedom, a chance to escape the life she had never chosen. The eyes of the council were heavy on her, full of judgment and disdain, but all she could focus on was the human who had dared to offer her something no one else ever had. All right, she whispered, her voice barely audible, but filled with new hope. Take me with you. And just like that, her fate was sealed. She had chosen to take a chance on a stranger, to leave everything she knew behind for a life she could never have imagined. What awaited her on Earth, she didn't know, but one thing was clear. This was only the beginning of a journey that would change everything. Zara stood on the platform, her belongings packed in a simple bag at her feet. The alien city, once her home, now felt like a distant memory. The towering spires of the palace were barely visible in the distance, overshadowed by the heavy weight of the decision she had just made. The bustling crowds, the whispered rumors, the cold judgment of her people, it all felt so far away now. Here, in this moment, she was on the cusp of something unknown. Beside her, Eric stood silently, his posture relaxed but alert. He didn't try to offer words of comfort or attempt to explain the dangers that lay ahead. His presence was all she needed, a steady, unshaken force in a world that had just turned upside down. As they made their way through the crowded spaceport, Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Are you sure about this? She asked quietly, glancing up at him. Eric gave a small nod, his face solemn. I'm sure. There's no going back now. Zara didn't respond. She wasn't sure what to feel. Excitement? Fear? Both. A part of her had wanted to escape for so long, but now that the chance was real, she couldn't help but wonder about the life she was leaving behind. She had been the princess of Silora, heir to a throne, once beloved by her people, until the day they cast her aside. Now she was just another outcast, with nothing to her name but the clothes on her back and a human soldier offering her refuge. She wasn't sure what awaited her on Earth, but she could sense the promise of a life that could be hers if she was brave enough to take it. They boarded the ship that would take them to Earth. It was a small vessel, nothing like the grandeur of the ships she had once traveled on. But it was sturdy, functional, and it would get them to their destination. As the engines hummed to life, and the spaceport slowly shrank behind them, Zara felt a strange mix of emotions. A part of her wanted to look back, to reconsider, to return to the life she once knew. But another part of her, perhaps the stronger part, knew that she couldn't go back. Not to a life of rejection, of being an outcast. "I've never been to Earth," Zara admitted after a long pause, her gaze fixed on the stars outside the window. "What's it like there?" Eric looked over at her, his expression unreadable. "It's different. You'll see when we arrive. The people there are just as complicated as the rest of the universe, but they don't have the same rules you're used to. They'll treat you as a person, not as a symbol of something bigger. You'll be free." Zara let his words sink in. She had always been a symbol, the princess, the heir to the throne, the person everyone expected her to be. But who was she really? What would it mean to be just Zara, with no title, no expectations, and no palace to return to? Her thoughts were interrupted as the ship entered faster than light travel. The stars outside blurred into streaks of light as they shot through the galaxy, and Zara felt a slight jolt in her stomach. She was leaving everything she knew behind, and there was no going back. As the ship settled into the depths of space, Zara turned back to Eric, her expression serious. "Why are you doing this?" "I'm nothing. A failure. You didn't have to help me." Eric met her gaze, his eyes steady. "I don't believe that," he said softly. "Everyone deserves a chance to live, including you." Zara's chest tightened as she considered his words. She didn't know how to thank him for this unexpected act of kindness, for offering her a future when no one else would. She was a princess no more, but a woman who had been given a chance, an unknown chance. As they continued on their journey through the vast expanse of space, Zara couldn't help but feel both afraid and hopeful. The future ahead was unclear, and danger could be lurking at every turn. But she wasn't alone. Eric was with her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for a new beginning. The question now wasn't what would happen next. It was how she would rise to meet it. The journey to Earth felt like both a dream and a nightmare, the days blending into one another as the small ship hurtled through space. Zara had no way of knowing how long it had been, but time didn't matter as much anymore. The only thing that mattered now was the strange, unsettling feeling that came with the unknown. The soft hum of the ship's engines was a constant companion, and Zara found herself lost in the sound, staring out at the endless blackness of space. The stars looked so different from Earth's skies, so many of them, scattered across the void like glitter on a canvas. It was breathtaking, but also sobering. This was her new reality, and there was no going back. As they finally began to approach Earth, the ship began to decelerate. Zara's stomach churned with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. What was Earth really like? Would the humans accept her, or would she forever be an outcast? "You ready?" Eric asked, his voice breaking through her thoughts. Zara turned toward him, her heart pounding. "I don't know. I've never been so far from home." "You're not alone," he said with a reassuring smile. "I'll be here with you." The ship finally broke through Earth's atmosphere, and the blue-green planet came into view, a vibrant world full of life and possibilities. Zara had never seen anything like it. From the stars, Earth seemed so small, so fragile, yet so full of potential. She couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. Perhaps this was where her new life would begin. As they touched down in a remote area far from civilization, Zara felt a wave of panic. The ground beneath her feet was solid, real, and so different from the sleek, polished floors of the palace. The unfamiliar terrain stretched out in every direction, with dense forests and towering mountains rising in the distance. Eric turned to her, his eyes serious. "This is it. Earth. We need to be careful. The journey's not over yet." Zara nodded, trying to steady her breath. She was so far from everything she had ever known. The fear was overwhelming. Her former life felt like a distant memory, something she would never be able to return to. The fear of the unknown gnawed at her, but she knew she couldn't afford to let it consume her. "Where do we go from here?" Zara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's a place I know, a small town in the mountains. It's peaceful, and it's far enough away from the busy parts of Earth that we should be safe for a while. We can start there and figure things out." Zara hesitated. "Will they accept me? The humans, after everything I've done, everything my people have done?" Eric placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch firm but kind. "I can't promise everything will be easy, but I know that the humans I've met are more open-minded than the people you've known. There's a chance, Zara. A chance for something better." Zara exhaled deeply, trying to calm the storm of emotions brewing inside her. She had never known such uncertainty, but as she looked at Eric, his unwavering presence made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Together, they stepped off the ship and onto the foreign soil of Earth. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and wildflowers. The sun, setting behind the distant mountains, cast an orange glow over the landscape, making everything seem alive. The world felt so different from her home, simpler, quieter, but still filled with possibilities. Eric led the way through the dense forest, and Zara followed, trying to take it all in. Every tree, every bird, every rustle of leaves was new to her. She was a stranger in this world, yet she felt something stir within her, an inkling of belonging. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be obstacles, challenges, and dangers they would have to face together. But for the first time, Zara wasn't afraid. She was ready to face whatever came her way because, for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, this was where her new life would begin. As they ventured deeper into the forests of Earth, the world around Zara seemed to pulse with new life. The vibrant green of the trees and the rustling of wildlife made her feel strangely comforted, despite the enormity of the change. Every step felt like a leap into the unknown, but it also felt like the beginning of something significant, something that had the potential to rewrite her destiny. The journey through the dense woods was quiet except for the occasional chirp of insects or the distant call of birds. Eric led the way with ease, moving through the underbrush as though he had walked these paths 1,000 times. Zara, however, stumbled more than once on uneven ground, but each time Eric would glance back and offer her a reassuring smile. As the evening sun dipped lower in the sky, the light filtering through the trees began to shift into deep shadows, casting long, jagged shapes across the forest floor. Zara couldn't help but feel an eerie sense of calm in the silence. There was something so different here, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that this place held secrets waiting to be uncovered. "How far is this town?" Zara asked, breaking the quiet. "We're close," Eric said, glancing back at her. "Just a little farther." She nodded but kept her thoughts to herself. There was so much she didn't know about Earth, about its people, and about what awaited her in this strange new world. It wasn't just the environment that was foreign to her. It was the very idea of her life here. No longer a princess, no longer seen as the symbol of her people, but a woman alone in a strange land. Eric stopped and turned to face her. "Zara, I need to tell you something. Once we reach the town, things will get complicated. You're not just any alien. Your people are known for their conquests, their power. Some of the humans, they might not welcome you." Zara's chest tightened. "I understand. I knew this wouldn't be easy." "It's not just that," Eric said, his voice soft but serious. "There are those who may see you as a threat, someone they can exploit for power. We'll have to be careful, move in the shadows if we can." Zara stared at him for a moment, her heart sinking. She had known there would be risks, but the weight of them was becoming clearer with every word Eric spoke. She had no illusions that her arrival would go unnoticed. The people of her world had abandoned her, and now, even on Earth, there might be those who would try to use her for their own ends. But there was something else, something stronger than fear, that kept her moving forward. Hope. The hope that there was a place for her in this world, a place where she could be herself, not the daughter of a king, not a symbol of an entire civilization, but simply Zara. They reached the outskirts of the town as the last light of day slipped away, the air growing cooler. Zara could see the faint outline of buildings ahead, lights flickering from the windows. It seemed peaceful, a stark contrast to the world she had left behind. Eric stopped at the edge of the trees, motioning for Zara to follow. "We're here. I'll take you to a safe place first, then we'll figure out the next steps. Just trust me." Zara didn't speak. She simply nodded, her heart racing in her chest. As they walked toward the town, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced around, but the trees stood silent, the shadows playing tricks on her eyes. Still, she couldn't ignore the sensation of eyes on her. When they reached the town's edge, Eric stopped and pointed to a small, modest house hidden between two larger buildings. It was nondescript, with a thatched roof and small windows, but something about it felt safe. "This is where we'll stay," Eric said quietly. "Inside, you'll be safe. Just try to blend in. Don't give anyone a reason to ask too many questions." Zara felt a strange mix of gratitude and uncertainty. She had a safe place to stay, but that didn't mean the dangers were over. The world around her was full of potential threats. Eric opened the door to the house, revealing the warm, simple interior. A fireplace flickered in the corner, casting a gentle glow on the stone walls. There were basic furnishings, chairs, a small wooden table, and a few rugs scattered across the floor. It wasn't much, but it was a sanctuary, a temporary home. Zara stepped inside, and Eric followed, closing the door softly behind them. As she sat down by the fire, the exhaustion of the journey began to hit her. She had been through so much in such a short amount of time. Betrayal, rejection, loss. And now, this. Earth. A new life. She looked up at Eric, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." Eric gave her a small, encouraging smile. "You don't need to thank me. You're not alone anymore." And for the first time since her life had been torn apart, Zara believed it. She wasn't alone. She had a chance here. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be struggles ahead, but she had hope now. And for Zara, that was the first step toward healing. Days passed in a blur of quiet routine. Zara had begun to adjust to her new life in the small town, but each day brought a new wave of uncertainty. The villagers seemed to keep their distance, watching her with wary eyes. Zara couldn't blame them. After all, she wasn't just any stranger. She was an alien, the daughter of a king, and in many ways, an outsider in this human world. She spent most of her time inside the small cottage, keeping her head down and avoiding unnecessary attention. Eric was always there, a steady presence in the whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. He was her protector, her only ally in a world that still felt like it was moving too fast for her to catch up. Yet, despite his reassurance, a sense of unease gnawed at her. What if things didn't work out? What if the humans rejected her, the very thing her people had done? Zara had been rejected by her own kin, the very people she was supposed to belong to. Could she truly belong here, in this strange world? It wasn't long before her worst fears began to take shape. One afternoon, as Zara sat by the window, staring out at the peaceful town below, a group of villagers approached the house. Zara's heart skipped a beat as she noticed them walking toward the door, their expressions unreadable. She instinctively turned away from the window, her heart racing. "Eric," she called out, her voice trembling. "Someone's coming." Eric looked up, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the situation. "Stay inside, Zara," he said, his tone sharp. Don't open the door. Let me handle this." Zara nodded, retreating into the shadows of the cottage. Her pulse raced as she watched from the window, unsure of what would happen next. Would they demand that she leave? Would they turn her in, or worse, accuse her of some terrible crime? She could hear the muffled voices of the villagers as they approached, and Eric's calm replies, trying to reassure them. But it wasn't long before the mood shifted. The voices grew louder, and Zara could sense the tension in the air, like a storm on the horizon. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and one of the villagers stepped inside. A man, older, with graying hair and a stern face. Eric stood his ground, but Zara could see the worry in his eyes. "Are you the one who brought this creature here?" the man asked, his voice cold. Eric's jaw tightened. "She's not a creature. She's Zara. And she's here under my protection." The man scoffed. "Protection? From what?" "She's one of them. The alien queen's daughter. What's to stop her from turning on us?" Zara's breath caught in her throat as the weight of the accusation hung in the air. She was no longer a princess. No longer someone who had the protection of her people. She was just a stranger, and to some, she was still an enemy. Eric stepped forward, his body tense with anger. "She's not what you think she is. She's trying to escape the horrors of her past. Just like anyone else, she deserves a chance." The man eyed Eric suspiciously. "And you expect us to just accept her into our town? After everything we've heard? Alien invaders. We don't know what she's capable of." "I'm not asking you to accept her blindly," Eric said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm asking you to give her a chance. She's been through more than you can imagine. She doesn't want war. She wants peace." The man was silent for a moment, weighing Eric's words. Then, with a final glance toward the window, he turned and left, his footsteps echoing in the quiet evening. Zara let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. She looked at Eric, her heart pounding. "What will happen now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Eric didn't answer right away. He walked over to her, his expression unreadable. Then he placed a hand on her shoulder and gave her a reassuring smile. "Now, we wait," he said, "and hope that they see you for who you really are." But Zara knew it wasn't that simple. She could feel the shadow of doubt hanging over her, the weight of fear and rejection pushing down on her shoulders. Every day spent in this new world, every moment of silence, seemed to push her closer to the edge. What if this was just a fleeting hope? What if, no matter how hard she tried, she would never truly belong? The world around her felt like it was closing in. The people of Earth, so far removed from her own, were now a reminder of just how much she had lost. How could she ever fit in when everything about her, the way she looked, the way she spoke, even the very essence of her being, was different from them? And yet, in the midst of her doubts, Zara held on to the one thing that had kept her going: hope. It wasn't easy, and it wouldn't come without a fight. But there had to be a place for her. There had to be a future for her here, with Eric and the humans who might one day accept her. For now, she would wait. Wait and see if she could truly belong. The days following the villagers' confrontation were heavy with silence. Zara stayed inside, her mind racing with worry, but also with the weight of uncertainty. Eric was a constant presence by her side, though even he seemed deep in thought, as if he were trying to prepare for something inevitable. Every now and then, Zara caught him staring into the distance, as if lost in a world of his own. She knew he was troubled by the villagers' growing suspicion, but she also knew that he would protect her at any cost. On the outside, the village was still peaceful, but Zara could feel the tension in the air. The villagers were watching them, whispering among themselves. The fear of the unknown was never easy to shake off, and Zara knew she had to find a way to prove her worth, not just to Eric, but to everyone around her. She had always been a princess, raised to rule, raised to command. But here she was nothing more than a foreigner, and no crown or title could change that. But there was one thing she had learned in her short time on Earth. Humans were resilient, and they were capable of surprising kindness. Still, that didn't change the fact that she was fighting an uphill battle. It was late one evening when things finally came to a head. Zara was sitting by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, when she noticed movement outside. A group of villagers, their faces grim, approached the cottage. Eric was nowhere to be seen. Fear gripped Zara's heart. She could hear their murmurs as they came closer. She could already feel their judgment in the air. What did they want this time? Were they here to force her out? In that moment, she realized that her fate, and the future she hoped to build with Eric, depended on how this moment would unfold. Would they accept her, or would they demand that she leave, banished from their world just like her own people had rejected her? She took a deep breath, willing herself to stay calm. She had to be strong. The door creaked open, and Zara braced herself. The villagers, led by the same stern man who had confronted Eric earlier, stepped inside. His eyes were cold, but there was something different in his gaze this time. An uncertainty that hadn't been there before. "You," the man began, addressing Zara, his voice low. "We've been talking. You're different, aren't you? You're not like the others of your kind." Zara didn't know how to respond. She couldn't speak for the whole of her people, but she knew that she wasn't like them. She wasn't the warrior queen her father had expected her to be. She was Zora, a daughter lost in a strange world, trying to make sense of her place in it. "I'm not like them," Zora said softly, her voice steady despite the fear swelling in her chest. "I don't want to fight. I don't want war. I just want peace." The man studied her for a moment, then turned his gaze to Eric, who had just entered the room, his expression unreadable. Zara could see the weight of the situation in his eyes. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the decision that would change everything. Finally, the man spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "We've been wrong about you." Zora blinked in surprise, her heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "We thought you were a threat," the man continued, stepping closer. "But maybe you're not. Maybe you've come here for a reason." Zara felt a surge of hope rise within her chest, but she forced herself to stay grounded. "I didn't come here to cause harm. I just wanted a chance." The man nodded, a weary sigh escaping his lips. "Then maybe it's time we give you that chance." He turned to the others who had gathered behind him. "It's time we stop fearing what we don't understand. We've seen what Eric has done to protect you. Maybe we've underestimated humanity's ability to accept differences." A heavy silence filled the room as the villagers exchanged glances. Zara couldn't believe what she was hearing. It was as if the world around her had shifted, opening up the possibility of a future she hadn't dared to hope for. But just when she thought the tension had eased, another voice broke the quiet. "But what about the others? The ones who won't accept her? What will we do when the alien ships come looking for her?" The group shifted uneasily at the mention of the alien threat. Zara felt a pang of guilt. She knew the risk she posed. The aliens weren't going to just forget about her. They would come for her, whether the humans were ready or not. Eric stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "If the aliens come, we'll face them together," he said firmly. "And we'll protect Zara. We'll protect each other." The villagers were silent for a moment. It was as if they were grappling with the weight of Eric's words, grappling with the idea that the future wasn't just something to fear, but something they could shape together. Finally, the man who had first spoken nodded. "Then let's prepare. We'll give her the chance she deserves. But we'll be ready, just in case." Zara felt a flood of relief wash over her. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Maybe, just maybe, she had found a place here, among humans, among people who had once feared her, but now were willing to see beyond her alien heritage. As the villagers left, Zara turned to Eric, her heart full of gratitude. "Do you think they'll really accept me?" Eric smiled, his eyes full of determination. "I think they already have." And in that moment, Zara realized that acceptance wasn't something she could just wait for. It was something she would have to earn, not just through words, but through actions. And with Eric by her side, she would fight to show the world that she was more than just a princess from a distant planet. She was Zora, a woman with a future and a place in this world. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in her life, Zara felt like she had a chance to make it.